about my past. I was raised up in, I spent, quite a few years of my childhood in a town called Sheung Shui. I don't know whether you've heard of the town. So if you go from Kowloon to Shenzhen, you have to pass by the border town Luowu. So Sheung Shui is one stop before Luowu. Now Sheung Shui is quite big. I think it's one of the satellite towns of Hong Kong. I don't know how many people live there, but when I'm talking about 40 years back, when I was there, it was a very small town with I would imagine the population was about not more than 30,000 people. And I used to, one of the reasons why I was there was my mother, she was hired to teach in a kindergarten in that remote town of Hong Kong. So 40 years ago, it's very different, now you come to Hong Kong, everything is modern, and the airport, very impressive. But 40 years ago, Sheung Shui was a bit like, you get off the train station, you walk around, and you see these huge mother pigs with little piglets following them. We were really integrated in a certain way with nature, and it's kind of, by today's standards, it was you wouldn't feel comfortable. But as kids, we say, wow, we've moved to this nice place, and a lot of space as well. So I went to study. So she taught in kindergarten, and I was in primary school. Okay, I don't know whether you've heard of this. It's called Fung Kai Primary School. It's got about 8 to 10 classrooms. And I think the biggest building in town was the police station, always. And then the police station and the temple, the temple, isn't it? The ancestral temple. So where I live was away from town actually. So I get off train, we had to walk half an hour, there's no bus, no minibus, and you can't ride a bike, half an hour to get to the old village, which I think is now totally gone. So the old village was surrounded by these walls, very tall walls for protection. Really, you can imagine a few hundred years ago, people would be attacking the village, and then you have this iron gate, and we go inside, and then you have these small, tiny little two bi-level buildings. I want to say duplexes, but it's going to be quite misleading. So homemade 2-level buildings, of different sizes and colors and shapes. You see some of those sometimes if you go to Pengchao, I imagine. And so the front, it was a huge wall, and at the back there is I'm sure whether this is the word for it, the moat, isn't it? So it's a water. It's a kind of waterway to protect the village. So I live close to the moat, and we had a house, a small house. We rented it from the villagers. So I would open the window, and right outside, lychee trees, and then you can actually pick lychees and eat them. So we were very close to nature, and one of the things that I was kind of young, and then the village kids were very tough, I lose in fights with them, so I just walk around and talk to the plants and the flowers, I imagine. So we got to know nature quite a bit, you sort of know what kind of insects associated with what kind of plants, where do you catch these spiders, and you play with these little insects, and you exchange them, put them in the little boxes. Don't look at me like that, Kevin. So I was, that was the kind of, these were the toys that we had, to play with, catching insects, we don't have lots of stuff like that. And boats were very precious. And it's quite, all these imagery that I have about Sheung Shui in the 70s are still quite vivid. And so because it's a very simple village, we are very close to nature, and we are affected by the weather quite a bit as well. The typhoon season comes, and what happens is that you have the low pressure, the trough it comes the calm before the storm. And what I would see, and it sort of explains this red dragonfly, is that a cloud of dragonfly would descend so low. It would be flat. I mean, it's the size of a football field, all right, and it would descend, and we would, as kids, would pick up branches and sticks, and we just wave them and whip them, and some of them get killed. Isn't it? So that's how we played in those times. And I thought it was kind of nice, I mean, now when you look back, it's kind of crazy, but it's quite a scene, You can see this huge cloud of dragon. Maybe you can see it here too if you live on DB. Sometimes nowadays on Peng Chau, I do see a small, like a few hundred. Here, maybe you see quite a few of them as well, isn't it? Yeah, which is a good sign that they're returning. Yeah, other than that, I had a very good Chinese teacher. She was from China, and she taught us, literature was quite important. In fact, if you do, it was introduced in elementary school. We had to learn the poems, Li Po, the traditional Chinese poets. We had to learn it by heart, So at that time, it was quite challenging. I mean, it was quite tough. We didn't like it. But now, looking back, wow, it's a kind of treasure trove that we were forced to learn. And so after primary school, I went back to study to the cities to study. And again, very lucky. I had a teacher who taught us English literature, and who showed us different genres of literary works, from Yeats and Shakespeare, Keats. It's not everyone liked it, but somehow I don't know why. It's quite strange. Sometimes the reading material, sometimes I had to struggle. It wasn't my first language, but somehow certain lines in poetry that I was exposed to, that I encountered, got me sort of really interested in certain forms of literature. So I always tell this line from a poem. Maybe you know this person as well. Probably if you're from Australia and then you're from England, probably you've read this poem. It's called Sea Fever, by John Masefield. You've heard of him? John Masefield. Yes, of course. Yeah, everyone. Sea fever. Everyone's like. So it goes like. The first line is, I'll never forget it. In my life, I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky, and all I ask is just a tall ship and a star to steer her by. So it's sort of like. I don't know why. It's sort of like wow, So this is how I got started and got interested in reading English literature, and I sort of continued, and I sort of explored different genres, science fictions and philosophy and different sorts of work as well. So reading, I was a kind of bookworm as well. I don't know why. It's part of my reading was part of my life.
That poem was kind of rocky, like a mother, like rocking the rhythm, like the poem that you just recited.
Yeah. It's a very that's a good point. I think it's nature. Sea, it's the sea. It's nature. I mean, you may not think of it as you think of trees but the sea is such a powerful element in nature. It controls a lot of things on the surface of the earth. But yeah, I like the sea as well. When I was a kid, I used to dream of seas, beaches and stuff. So then, high school, university, I sort of stopped. I continued reading, but I never wrote anything. I never wrote anything until I went to New Zealand. I spent 5 years in New Zealand. I did my PhD there in psychology, and I was putting together a newsletter for a religious community. So I had to do some writing, and I started to write poems a little bit, and I stopped. And then it was the changeover. So my family migrated from Hong Kong to Canada. So and then I followed them, with my parents, my brothers. So I spent about 6 to 7 years in Canada working. I worked in Montreal. My family lived in Toronto. So I had a lot of time, life in Canada is good. So in the sense that people, you can tell it by the way people greet each other. Take it easy. Hong Kong, you can't. You can't do it here. Hong Kong is about Hong Kong. Take it easy. And Australia is good as well. New Zealand. Have a nice day. I think this is so nice. To say these things when you greet people. So I spent 6 years working in Canada, and I the weekends are great. You can actually enjoy, have the energy. You have the energy left from the week to enjoy your weekends and do the things that you want to do. So, because I worked in Montreal, and my family lived in Toronto. So what I would do is that I had to drive. The weekends. Chinese family, you gotta go and see them once a week. So maybe once in 2 weeks. So I had to drive about 360 kilometers from Montreal to Toronto. So driving, it's quite, it's quite a few hours, 6 hours, I think. So there are places we can actually take a break. So this driving thing is challenging in the beginning for me, but I got to enjoy it a little bit, and I would. Write poems. Not in the car. I would not while I'm driving. So I would think of things, and then there is a stop, and you drive and have a coffee, and you continue to drive for another 3 hours. So maybe I would begin by introducing a poem that I wrote during that time. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know whether you are aware that. Okay, so this is Highway 401, one of my first poems that I wrote when I was in Canada. A fragment of rainbow, left behind by a carefree angel, descends to bestow blessings on those who look up to the autumn sky. Seagulls gather, some standing on one leg, against that cold westerly, to pick up crumbs fallen from the hands of distracted minds heading east toward that foreign language city, French. Here at this juncture, we meet and part, traveling in parallel, each in our own ways. None of us shall meet again, perhaps never, not until that very final day. I hear them shriek, the seagulls. They seem to be saying, no more crumbs from heaven to feed those who are too busy making a living. So this is Highway 401. And looking back, so I did some writing, some of the poems that I wrote when I was in Canada, and then I came back to Hong Kong at the changeover 1997, yeah. So I spent 6 years. I went to Canada 1992. So the changeover, I came back to work in Hong Kong. So I witnessed the changeover as well. And I was fortunate enough to work for someone some boss who did not get me too tired during the week, so I can enjoy my weekends. It's kind of a blessing that way. So I would, because I've left Hong Kong for such a long time, so it's something new to me. So what I decided to do is to explore the city. So I would get my backpack on the weekends, and I would just walk around the city. The city itself is like a kind of forest. It could be quite an adventure to do in Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong is kind of special place if you have the time and the patience to look around, because of its. I've always told people that Hong Kong has a very unique cultural makeup, in the sense that 300-400 years back, it was the Qing dynasty, and it was the Ming dynasty before that. And those times of history still has imprint somewhere in Hong Kong. You can certain rock or temple, I don't know. So all these could date back to the Ming or Qing dynasty. And then, of course, after that, we had the British administration for about like 150 or so years. So it's another layer of culture. So Hong Kong is a bit like a layered cake. Okay, so you have the traditional dynastic layers, and then you have the British layer, which is like quite a long time. And these things affect us in certain ways. And then after halfway is the Japanese invasion for 4 years or so, and and then they left, of course, after the war. And it was the Americans when I was in high school. The Americans had quite some influence in the world as well, partly because it was fighting a war in Vietnam. Yeah, so the American presence was quite big. Even as a kid, I sort of noticed it. The movies and the music that I listened to, like Simon and Garfunkel. Mariana, Albert, don't tell people the song, like it reveals your age, all right? Okay.
Start counting.
Yes, Albert, don't tell people what kind of songs you like. So it was Simon and Garfunkel, one of my favorite groups, and then also we have some Canadian singers as well, Neil Young and so on. And just to digress a little bit, I must mention this song. By I don't know whether you know the song. It's to do with nature as well, and nature and human sentiment and love, actually. So the name of the song is Kathy's Song. I don't know whether you've heard it. I hear the drizzle of the rain, like a memory it falls. Do you know that? Yeah, okay. I'll play it next time. But it's about rain, and I think one of the reasons why. Rain is, in Chinese poems as well, rain is used as a metaphor for love and affection. And I sort of thought to pay attention to these changes in nature, in the weather. And I sort of noticed rain is very complex. So when I hear the drizzle of, is it drizzling? When it's drizzling, it's one kind of sound. When it pours, it's another kind of sound. So it affects us in an acoustic sense. And then I sort of noticed that if you don't live indoors and you live close to nature, when it rains, it changes the temperature a bit as well. So it changes the temperature. It changes the scent of the air. Everything smells different during the rain and after the rain. Yeah. And of course, if you walk around in rain, you have the sense of touch. And a drizzle is very different from a heavy pour. The latter will kill you. When it's drizzling, it's very romantic, so to speak. So I sort of started to feel, to understand the various dimensions of nature and how it affects our moods and sentiment. So where was I? Simon and Garfunkel, that was in high school, so I was exposed to. Let's go back a little bit. It's that the different layers of culture that you can find if you try hard enough to find them. And you do see these layers and the effects of the names. But it's too bad, and the sad thing is that Hong Kong, I think in general, is not capitalizing enough on this sort of heritage, multi-layered heritage. And we move on too quickly, and which is the sad thing. So cultural diversity is very important in Hong Kong. It's in layers, and I have also realized that it's not just that. It's also I've learned a lot of those from Kevin. He's posting. Kevin, please stay away from the bird. So here in Hong Kong, it's amazing. But I thought, Kevin, where did you buy that picture? So many different types of birds that you can find. I still can't believe it. They live here or pass by Hong Kong for migratory reasons, I don't know. Birds and the insects as well. Many different kinds of insects, and the vegetation could be very, very varied. So in terms of biodiversity, it's one of, it's quite top on the...
It's a global hotspot.
Oh.
Really? It's close to the top.
Wow.
It's
Yeah. So it's
anywhere
mainly
in the world.
I remember I used to do hiking quite a bit. So I was Saigon, Saigon on the eastern end of the territory. And I was hiking. Sometimes I enjoy hiking by myself. So I hiked by myself, and I went up the hill, just like along these hills in the morning. And all of a sudden, I realized that I have entered the world of tiny little spiders. And I mean, for a lot of you, oh my goodness, it's the whole entire hill. I don't know they were breeding. I don't know what they were doing. So the entire hill. It's quite scary, we're covered by tiny little spiders at about the same time. That's the weird thing about it, so I don't know how they did it. So nature, biodiversity, and culture, for me, Hong Kong is very special. It's very complex and they interrelate. And when I saw the spiders, it reminded me of the story that I heard about these Chinese mythology of, this spider woman. So in the West, it's Spider-Man. So we have Spider Women, or Spider Girl, if you like. Spider babies, maybe. So this is another thing that sort of got me interested in nature, and I sort of looking back, a lot of my poems have some elements of nature in it. But anyway, I'm not gonna read the ones with elements of nature. I think I'm going to stick to the ones with moving, traveling. So Highway 401 is traveling from Montreal to Toronto, and then I find these short trips, even in Hong Kong, small place, 20 kilometers by 20 kilometers. But if you get on the bus or the tram and you travel a short distance, it could be still, if you have the time and the kind of mentality, you sit there, and it could be very exciting as well. So I have another, it's amazing, I used to live in Wafu Estate before I moved up to Pingchao. And from Wafu, you go to work in Central, you take 40M, yeah? You sort of know the place, Bonham Road. So if you work for a certain company, usually you take the same bus. It's the same people you see every day, but you don't know them. Yeah, you know who's in the bus. You know who's going to get off where. You know who's going to get on the bus, but you don't never talk. You never know these people. And I spent a year or two doing that. It's kind of amazing. But I was lucky. So this is 40M, Voyage of Destruction, from Wafu to work.
Okay. What page is it?
Yeah, that's page 22. So it's just 45 minutes, 20. So what are you going to do? So you do something like this. So you write a poem. Her hair, sometimes she ties it back. But whatever she does with it, it's a new form of beauty, a new prose, a new song written to overshadow the golden rays of the setting sun. Blue eyes, whether their shade is the insignia of the evening sky, or it's a reflection of the ocean depth that I do not know. Her gaze, it upsets my pretentious calm, seeks the direct path to my heart, and injects there the joy of life that I'm certain. So this is another short, distant voyage, and it's a poem about the people that you see and how they affect you. Okay, a cold evening. The north wind screamed, rushed across the hinterland of snow, of leafless trees. Shimmering lights decorated the darkening sky. Vehicles travel hastily, as if desperate to seek something, and all hurrying home. I watched every movement, every color, shape, and silence. I watched the world standing on its own, a world struggling, a last glorious but lonely city. Where was it heading to? In the boundless, matterless, dark universe. Scorched by a severe yet crushed beauty, my eyes turned to those who were near. My heart yearned for a touch of deep humanity to fill this breathlessly unbridled void.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this one I wrote on a plane when I flew from Hong Kong to Europe. So there is no now up here. There's no now up here 10 kilometers above the ground, coaxed by headwinds and tailwinds into lingering memories of the past and anxieties of things that not yet are. There is no room for my body, no quiet flushing water for leisure and pleasure, 10 kilometers above the ground, wrapped in a tube, tight and linear, skipping across cosmic space and down, a generation traveling mean and fast. Are we getting anywhere?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you very much.